It's recorded. Harvey, can you hear me? Harvey?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Oh, so Chaim wanted to know, do you want me to... Oh, hello. How are you?
I
I like your swarm behind. You've got Iglis Moshe. What else do you have? I don't have an Iglis Moshe. If I ever need one, can I borrow it?
I've got more than what's just behind me.
Oh. Which other sword do you have? You've got a nice swarm. Have you got Minchas Yitzchok there?
I know, I don't think so.
What's next to the Shulchan Aruch? That's about it. Just on top of the Iglis... Yeah, what's that? What? What are those?
It's a Mishnah Torah.
Ah, the Rambam, right. Anyway, Chaim wants to know, is there any reason to record it tonight?
Not tonight, no.
Okay.
No.
How are you? Okay?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Baruch Hashem.
I was getting a drink. Give me 1 second.
Usual running around. Little one, Yomi. She woke up at 12 o'clock last night. She's gonna have ice cream. She'll have ice cream yesterday. She didn't have it. She woke up at night very, very hot. Like ice cream coffee. Whoa. So I went to bed. I wake up at 12 o'clock at night. Very hot.
Right. Sorry about that. Just didn't get a drink. Okay. We're going to be finishing the perk tonight. Lots and lots and lots of different halachas, which are applicable in many different ways. We're up to the Mishnah. The Mishnah is on Daf Kuf Mem Amud Beis. Mishnah Kuf Mem Amud Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom. So you have a cow, and the cow needs feeding. So what you do is you have a trough. Now there are two problems with the trough. The trough can sometimes have dirty things inside it. If you're going to start filling it with straw when it's got dirty things already inside, then the cow or the donkey might not eat properly. So you want to clean out the trough. That's one thing you want to do. What's the point of cleaning out the trough? So it's interesting. So I said why there's no problem with muktzah. But the Gemara discusses a different problem, not the problem of muktzah, which is what we would have said. The problem is that when you clean out the trough, it's sweeping. Sweeping the floor is always a problem that you might come to level it out. A trough is what is it? It's an enclosure on the floor. It's just basically like a fence. Oh, very good. We'll discuss that. Very good. So problem number one is that you might come to Mashra Gumma is flattened. Now besides for that, let's say you pour into the trough too much, and now you've got piles and piles of it, and some of it is falling over the sides. You want to remove it. Why do you want to remove it? Because if you don't move it away, the cow might spoil it. So you want to move it away. And there's a problem of muktzah, because it's not made anymore for the feeding. It's used for other things. You want to set it aside for other things. So there's a problem of muktzah. No, because we're not about where you're dividing it, you're just sweeping it. So Mishnah says, you're allowed to sweep away in front of the cow which you're trying to fatten. You're allowed to sweep away the rubbish. And you're allowed to move the straw that you shouldn't shred on it. The Chum forbid it. The more discusses why. This if they be mazub Shabbos. The light is in your house, but in some families you have children that are very, very fussy. If somebody even ate a bit of food from one plate, they will not touch it from another plate. Now, animals, there are different kinds of animals as well, not just different kinds of human beings. So there are some animals that will not eat if another animal ate, and some don't care. If they don't care, so then there's nothing muktzah about it, because after the ox, let's say, or the donkey's finished, you can give it to an ox, right? Because it doesn't matter. So the Mishnah says, if you're allowed to take from one animal and pass it on to the next animal, because the second animal will be happy to eat. There's no problem of being fussy about it. Says the Gemara, Rabbanon, the Chachamim that forbid the two cases of the Reisha, that is, sweeping the trough and putting away the straw, do they argue on both? Are both forbidden? Or only on the first, or on the last? They forbid both. They forbid the case of moving the trough, cleaning the trough because of mashva gumois. You might come to sweep, you might come to straighten the floor. And they forbid moving the rest of the straw because some of it has been shrouded on, some of it has already been ruined, and it's become mukta, and therefore it's a problem of mukta. Omar al-Chista, like Shia puts out, machlokes b'cheiv v'shel karka. The whole machlokes is only a trough, which is all it is walls on the floor. But if it's a trough of a bowl, divakul mutter, because what's the problem? Mashva gumois is like a big bath. There's no problem with mashva gumois. Says the Gemara, can anybody hold that a trough which is in the floor is permitted? As you're sweeping the trough, you're no question about it, you're going to flatten the floor. So what's going to happen? He's got this floor, you've got a place with animals eat. As you put walls around it, it's going to be mashva gumois. As you sweep it, you're going to be mashva gumois, it's going to straighten it. A trough made out of a bowl, that's the machlekas. Awesome. Everybody agrees it's forbidden. So again, when you've got a trough, which is in a keli, that's a machlekas, whether you're allowed to clean it out or not, because the chashash, what's the chashash? Oh, it's a bowl, so you can't be mashva gumois. The answer is the Chachamim hold that if we allow you to clean out a trough, which is a very big bowl, you might come to say to yourself, what's the difference between that and a normal trough, which is in the floor? And then what might happen is you may come to be mashva gumois. So according to Abdisa, you're not allowed to clean out the trough which is on the floor. But if it's in a bowl, it's okay. The Chachamim say either one is forbidden. On the floor it's forbidden because it's mashva gumois, and in the bowl it's forbidden because you will come to be mashva gumois. The next Gemara is very straightforward. It just needs a tiny bit to understand because it goes back and forth. The Gemara says like this: ox and donkeys, cows and donkeys, have different ways of eating. Cows drool over the food, and they make the food very unappetizing for other people. Donkeys do not drool over the food. That's A. B. Donkeys are not fussy. Donkeys will eat thorns and branches, anything. Cows will only eat if it is clear food, nothing which has got thorns inside it. Now, the fact that donkeys eat thorns has no halachic ramifications in this sugya. It's only that we describe a donkey as being a eater that eats anything, while a cow doesn't eat anything. But the fact that a cow drools and a donkey doesn't, that does have halachic ramifications. You probably can guess what the halachic ramifications are. What difference does it make that a cow drools and a donkey doesn't? Oh, very good. Oh, if a donkey is eaten from it, you can give it to a cow. Why? Because the cow will have no reason not to eat it because the donkey never drooled over it. But once you gave it to a cow, you can't then take it to a donkey. Why not? Because the donkey's never going to touch it now. It's just been drooled all over by a cow. So that is the halachic ramification. Says the Gemara like this. Now, once we know the background, the Gemara is quite straightforward. One price says, you could take from an animal that's got like a clean, good mouth, and give it to a bad animal. So that's the simple explanation, is what we're talking about. Taking it from a donkey who's got a clean mouth to a cow, because at the end of the day, he doesn't make a mess. But Britannia idach, you can take food from an animal who's got a bad mouth, and now that doesn't make any sense. Why would you be allowed to take food from an animal that's got a bad mouth to an animal that's got a good mouth? So Abai explains, everybody agrees from a donkey to a cow you can take. As we explained, a donkey doesn't drool, but a cow does. So therefore, you can take from a donkey to a cow. What's the problem? He's going to eat it. And everybody agrees, everybody agrees from a cow to a donkey, not allowed to take. Why? Why not allowed to take from a cow to a donkey? By the time the cow is finished, the donkey's never going to want to touch it. It says muksa. It doesn't have jewels. Saliva. This if they be the top of that which it says you can take from a mouth, a clean mouth to a dirty mouth, that's referring from a donkey to a cow. Oh, but what about the second bias? The second bias is problematic. Because the second bias says you're allowed to take from an animal that's got a dirty mouth, so to speak, an unpleasant mouth, to a clean mouth. Now, who's that? We just said you can't take from a cow to a donkey. Says the Gemara, over here we mean something else completely. Over here we're not referring to drooling. Over here we're referring to how fussy they are. He's not careful what to eat. Here, when we talk about a bad mouth, we don't mean a mouth that drools. We mean a mouth that's not fussy and eats even thorns. So we can take from an animal that's got an unpleasant mouth, meaning a mouth which doesn't care what to eat. So both Brises are telling us the same halacha. Just one Brises speaks in one language, one Brises in another language. One Brises is referring to drooling and not drooling, and it says you can take from an animal that doesn't drool to an animal that does drool, because then there's no problem of muktzah, because since the first animal, meaning the donkey, didn't make a mess of it, the cow will eat it, but the other one is forbidden. The second Brise is referring to a completely different aspect between cows and donkeys. That donkeys will eat whatever's put on their plate, even thorns. And in that aspect, donkeys are considered to be animals that have an unclean mouth. A cow is very fussy. So you're allowed to take from an animal that's got an unclean mouth, meaning a donkey, to a cow that's got a clean mouth, meaning a cow, because it's careful what to eat. And that's the halacha. You're allowed to take food as long as somebody will still eat it, an animal will still eat it. There's no problem of muktzah. But once an animal won't eat it, you cannot move it from one animal to the next. Cow to donkey you're not allowed to take. Because the cow makes a mess of it, and the donkey, it drools over it, and then the donkey. The advice is the same thing. Yes. Says the Mishnah, Hakasha gabe mito lunanenu riyadu. In those days, they used to use straw, either for muktzah things, that for burning, or they used to use it for bedding. Now, normally, straw was used for fire. Therefore, normal straw is muktzah. But if you put it in your bed, so now, if you've done nothing to show that it's for your bed, it's still muktzah. So therefore, you want to now make your bed comfortable. What can you do? You can't smooth it out with your hands. Summer holidays, if you can't find somewhere to go away. So what do? You collect straw and you sleep on the hills. Comes Friday night, you can't set it straight around your bed because it's no good. You can lie down. No, because it's muktzah. It's muktzah. The straw is muktzah. Oh, we'll explain in a second. And on every gufo, you can lie down, and with your back, and with your shoulders, and with your feet, you can smoothen it out until you've got a comfortable position. If you set aside for food of an animal, or you already put a pillow or blanket there, once you put a pillow and a blanket, like Levi pointed out, once you put a pillow and a blanket there, you've designated it as a bed, so there's no problem of muktzah. But if you haven't designated it as a bed, and you've just put it down there, so it's not designated, so then you're not allowed to move it with your hand. And the way you make yourself comfortable is just by lying down. So that would be an halacha. Let's see you go. Oh. Because it's called tiltum unatzad. What? Now, I've said this a few times, I'll say it again. Because it's a very, very big machlokas. We discussed many times, it's happened to me a number of times, sure it happened to you sometimes, is that you find suddenly you've got a muktzah item on the floor on Shabbos. Let's say you find you've got your phone on the dining room floor. So you want to kick it underneath the couch that your children shouldn't make phone calls on Shabbos, your baby shouldn't play with it. Mutter, so what would you say? Kicking your phone underneath the couch. No, here's muktzah. No, this is muktzah just as bad. So the Mishnah Berurah says mutter, and he says, I've got a raya from this Mishnah that you want to smoothen out your bed. The bed is muktzah, right? Let's say you go on summer holidays, and you go Shabbos afternoon, and you get tired, you need a rest, and you find a field, and it's got bundles, you got piles of hay there. So you want to lie down. So you're not allowed to move the hay around to make yourself comfortable bed. But what you can do is lie on top of it and make yourself smooth. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what's the difference between that and kicking your phone underneath the couch? Both cases are mutter. Says the Chazon Ish, no, it's awesome. Why? Here, the reason why it's mutter is because what is the reason? What are you trying to do? You're trying to make yourself comfortable. So you're not doing it for the muktzah. You're doing it for yourself to be comfortable. So therefore, that is mutter. But when you're trying to do it for the sake of the muktzah, then it is forbidden. So when you're kicking the phone underneath the couch, according to Chazon Ish is forbidden. According to Mishnah Berurah, it is mutter. Mishnah carries on. In the old days, they used to have these presses. What they used to do is, they used to have two big sheets of wood, And what would happen is, Rashi gives a great length to explain. You would put one wood on top of the other, and you'd put a shirt or a piece of towel or bedding, and you'd press it. And in the wood, there were 4 sticks, and you would put pegs inside the stick going higher and higher, and you could adjust the height of the wood as it was going down. If you want to make it very, very tight press, so then you'd put in a stick and make it very, very low down. If you wanted to make it not such a tight, you would loosen it and make it higher up. So you had a press. Here there's a picture. I'll show it first over here. If you can see, can't see it so well. You can see the 2 beams of wood, and then there's 4 sticks and different pegs in the sticks. If you look very carefully, there are 4 notches in the stick, and you can choose which height. Here you can see it over here. It's very simple. So there's a few problems with this press. One is that it's muktzah. Another problem is that undoing the press is a bit like sosa, a bit like dismantling. So the Mishnah says like this: Machbesh balabat, a press of a private owner, mativin, you're allowed to loosen it, because that is mutter, because it's a keli shemalachta le'issa, and you're doing it in order to get your shirt out. Avloi koshin, you're not allowed to actually press your clothes on Shabbos. You can't take 2 pieces of wood and press them down on your shirt. But of a bathhouse, of a dry cleaners, of a washing place, you mustn't touch it. Why? Because to loosen it is a problem of dismantling, because it's made very, very, very strong, and it is made as a proper lasting situation. So to undo it looks like dismantling. It's also because of the fact that they would use it only for this purpose, and they were careful not to use it for anything else. It was also muktzah machmas chison kiss. So you weren't allowed to do it even to get your shirt out. Shabbos matters kulu v'shom. So Yehuda says no, that if it's a bit loose, meaning that if the presses are not tightly pressed, they've already not so pressed together, they've already been a bit loosened before Shabbos. So now there's no problem of dismantling. So then you're allowed to dismantle it even further and then pull out the shirt or whatever it is that's being pressed. So the Mishnah talks about 2 separate things. One is straw on the bed, and one is the press of people's pressing clothes. Now, we'll have this Gemara which had many times. A radish is shaped a little bit like a triangle. It goes down and up at the top. So straight to the top. Now, if you put a radish in the floor before Shabbos and you want to pull it out, if you put it in the normal way, so then what happens is when you pull it out, if let's say it's got some leaves sticking it out, it's not planted anymore. So when you pull it out, you're not moving the soil. Why are you not moving the soil? Because since it's in a slant, so you're just pulling it out, there's no problem. But if it's upside down, the radish, that means the thicker area, the wider part is in the ground, and you pull it out, so then you're going to move soil. So over here, by pulling the radish, you're going to move the ground. So Omar Nachman, I pull with this radish, if it's up the right way up, you're allowed to take it out. Also, if it's upside down, it is also because as you pull out the radish, what's going to happen? You're going to move the soil. We've got before Shem Mishnah like Rav Nachman. Why? The straw on the bed. It's a right. Over here, you're allowed to lie down on the bed. Why? Because it's tiltul min hatzad. Tiltul min hatzad is mutter. When you're pulling out the radish, so what are you doing? You're pulling out the radish for the sake of. You're pulling out the radish for the sake of the radish. So here, both could be and it's be mutter. So over here, there's no problem. You're allowed to pull out the radish. We don't care, because even though you will indeed move soil, it doesn't matter. So let's say, for example, you come into your garden on Shabbos afternoon, and you find that you've got a piece of, let's say, your cricket bat. Actually, cricket, I don't know if it's right. But let's say you've got something. You've got one of the children's little bikes is stuck a bit in the soil. So you're pulling it out the bike, and in the process, some of the ground comes with it. So that's not a problem because it's still Tum Tzad, and you're doing it for the sake to get out your children's bike or something. Therefore, it's mutter. What? You're not moving the soil directly, you're moving it indirectly, right? So according to this, the radish should be mutter. That means the radish is mutter in either way, whether the radish is upside down or the right way up. Even if it's upside down, where by pulling out the radish, you're dislocating a lot of earth, it's still mutter. Yes, exactly the same Gemara. Exactly the same Gemara. Says the Gemara. Now the Gemara tells us a lot of halachas of Shabbos, and each one is really an entire topic. We don't have so much time. We just go briefly through the different things you're allowed to do and not allowed to. Omar Yoda, hani pilpli, peppers. Meidak, to chop it. Choda choda, one by one, the cat of the sakina, with the handle of the knife, shol. Talti awesome. Since it's a shino, it's mutter. That means, Rav Yehuda says, you have to do two things. One is you have to chop it with the back of the knife, and second of all, only do one by one. Rava says you're allowed to do a very lot. What's going on over here? So there's an issa called a toichen. Toichen is to chop something finely. So what normally toichen is by chopping up grain. Here you're chopping up the pepper. Toichen is by over here where you're doing it b'shinui. It is only asa midrabanan. They permitted it for one vegetable. Rava says even for many vegetables. There's machlokes who showing him if whether to cut it with the right way with a knife would be awesome in ater midrabanan. Some is showing him would be awesome in ater. This is the actual case of toichen. The others who say this is not toichen. Toichen is not by something which is edible. Toichen is only by grain, and this even if you chopped up with the knife would still only be awesome midrabanan. So that's a shaila whether chopping up a pepper correctly would be deraisa or derabanan. That means chopping it up very, very finely. There are those who shouldn't even hold that it's deraisa. There are those who shouldn't hold it's derabanan. What they do agree, if you do it with derech shino, you're allowed to, and we pass can even a huge quantity. So if let's say your wife wants to cut up tomatoes and cucumbers, so she's got a choice. Either she should chop it with derech shino, which nowadays is very, very difficult, back of the knife, or what she should do is not chop it very finely. A person should be careful not to chop up a salad on Shabbos, that it should be very, very fine. What is exactly called fine and not fine? That's where the big shaila in Shabbos that he discusses it. Whatever is not considered the smallest way to eat it is already not fine. That means, let's say you cut up, if you cut up strands of carrot salad sometimes comes in strands, that is fine. Because that's the finest way that a person will ever eat a carrot salad. But if you cut it up slightly thicker than that, that's already not fine, because that's already not the way you'd have it. These are already, I'm just giving a very brief Roship Fokim. We're discussing all this because it is all things we should have to do b'derech shinu. Omar Yehuda, man desachi b'maya, a person who washes himself in the water on Shabbos. Nowadays, there's a minhag never to go for a bath on Shabbos. It's a minhag. It's not the ikar halacha, but it's actually quite a fundamental minhag. The Shulchan Aruch brings it. But nowadays, never had that minhag, so people could go for Teva. Or if those who Hasidim go to Teva on Shabbos, lingav nafshei bereisha, should dry himself first, v'hada lislik, and then he should come out. He'll come out to carry 4 amas in the kamelis. When he goes into the water, when you go into the river on Shabbos, as you walk into a river, you're pushing water out of the way, right? So as you're going in, you're pushing water 4 amas in the kamelis. So it's more something indirectly in the kamelis and never forbidden. So over here we're discussing coming out of a river, or the same halacha be out of a mikveh. What should you do? And this halacha is actually quite negea. Every so often I've had it, I'm walking on Shabbos, and it's bucketing down rain, and somebody stops me and says to me, I don't understand. Why are we allowed to walk this Shabbos? It's raining so much that the amount of water on my coat, why am I not even carrying? Can you imagine such a question? We asked this question quite a number of times to different people. I said, you don't understand, why are you walking on Shabbos? You're carrying lots of water. Now, the halacha, the reason is, it is completely mutter. In case anybody over here was started to think to themselves on Shabbos, they should just lock themselves up at home. That's not the halacha. You're allowed to walk on Shabbos even when it's raining. And it's a jolly good job, because in England it rains so much, it would be quite limited. And the reason is like this. Number one, the Shulchan Aruch talks about this, is because you're not usually carrying enough, which is a revius. You're not carrying a revius. You're carrying less than the shiur. Less than the Shiur is only Asur D'Rabbanan. Furthermore, you're carrying in an abnormal way. This is not the normal way of carrying water. You might have lots of water over your coat and your hair and everywhere else, but it's not the normal way of carrying. So it's D'Rabbanan either because of the measurement or either because of the manner. Now, it should be also with D'Rabbanan. The Chazal did not want people to be locked up at home, and therefore they took away the D'Rabbanan and they allowed people to walk in the streets on Shabbos, even if they carry. So there's two Tevim. One is that it's the measurements not on. One is because the what? Even in the Rishus Rabbim, you'd be allowed to walk with this water. This Gemara is not talking about a rainy day. This Gemara is talking about someone who's just gone for a swim or for mikveh. Now there, Chazal didn't take it away. Why didn't they take it away? And the answer is simple. Because walking in the rain is something which everybody has to do all the time. Therefore, they couldn't possibly forbid it. But over here, since it's possible to avoid going for a swim on Shabbos or going to mikveh on Shabbos, therefore they said to you, wait, why are you rushing out? Stand there, drip dry, and then go for a walk. So therefore over here they forbade it. Even though you're right, it's not the normal way of carrying, and even though indeed it's usually you've got less than over this, they said to you, it is also b'drabanan to carry on walking. Wait until you dry. So when a person's been in the rain, we say to him, look, you've got no choice. What do you expect him to do? To stay at home all day? But here you do have a choice. Now, this halacha, as you can imagine, is brought down by many poskim and discussions because I don't know how you have the minhag, but those who do have the minhag, if you go to mikveh every Shabbos, you're going to have a problem. What are you going to wait? To drip dry takes time. And to dry yourself is not so partial because of seichet. I was very happy to see that the Orchos Rabbeinu writes that the stipler used to wait in the mikveh on Shabbos morning until he was dry, because he did not want to walk in the street with his hair wet after being in mikveh on Shabbos morning. Oh, it's true. It's easier there to sew. It's much warmer. You probably didn't have to wait so long. But I was going to add, maybe I think to put a spanner in your works, I'm afraid. Like day back there was an Eruv, but he didn't rely on that Eruv. So you can imagine what a chumrah that is. But as you can imagine, there are many Hasidic Sfarim, even Moshe Steinberg and others, that say they can't do such a thing. What are you going to do? All the Hasidim, when we have to go to mikveh on Shabbos, you're going to have to wait for ages and ages. What? Why are we happy? Yeah, but then the people will be put off going to mikveh on Shabbos morning because they'll feel like it's hard enough to go to mikveh thing. And they find a Teirim not like this Gemara.
Well, it's nice you can press your hair with a towel on it, as long as the water goes into the towel.
But it's still a problem if you have to be dry. So, the more over here says that it's. So they give, like more over here, he says like this, Nungav Nafshei Bereisha is talking about a way where you have to make sure that you're not carrying a huge amount of water, like significant water on top of you. But when it's just a little bit of water dripping here and there, it's not a problem. So therefore they hold, there's many Tshuvas from that say that it's okay. So indeed, just as I explained very briefly, if you're going for a walk on Shabbos, you're getting wet, don't worry about it. If you're going to mikveh, you'll have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi, but you're better off asking Hasidic Shavov than the Litvish Shavov because you'll get a more kuladik psak. The hair and what with the rest of your body, if you're soaking all over, you'll have water everywhere. So then again, Chazal didn't forbid it. But if, because it's normal way of walking. A new topic. If a person got clay on his foot, you should clean it on the floor, not on the wall. Why not on the wall? Because clay is a building material. So if you clean your shoe on the wall, you're actually building the wall, because then after Shabbos, if somebody wants to add bricks, he's already got the clay ready there. It's not a normal way of building. Nobody builds like that, meaning that people don't add clay. They add other material, cement, but not clay, and therefore there's no problem. Okay, I don't know. It depends how much I've been walking. Sometimes you walk in a muddy place. Summer holidays, you walk in the mud. You get stuck. Okay. Don't do it on the floor. Why not? Because if you do it on the floor, you might come to flatten the floor, and that's a problem with Chavish. Says the Gemara, According to Ma'av they're not allowed to do it on the wall because of boina, and on the floor because you mash the gumos. So how are you going to clean the foot? You can clean it on the beam. If you clean it on the beam, you won't have the problem of either. It's not building and it's not mash the gumos. You shouldn't sit by the entrance of a lechi. In case something will roll and you'll come to carve it. Meaning like this. When you're inside the house and you're playing with something, it's easy for you to tell the difference between when it's gone out of the front door or not out of the front door. But when you're sitting by the end of a movie, so you've got nice little beams across, or you've got a post on each side, but you're standing at the entrance. So now you can't really notice the fact that you're actually in between a movie and a shusarabim. So something might roll out and you might come to bring it back in. So therefore it is forbidden. So on the video, on a superficial view, it sounds like from a movie to a shusarabim. But what about from a house to a movie without an eir, which is only isset rabbanon? It should be okay because he's talking about over here rolling from a movie to shusarabim. The Magen Avraham says that if you look carefully in the Rosh, he forbids it even by Rabbanon, because this says is something which is very, very common. So if you're sitting somewhere, let's say, for example, there'll be no air in Manchester, and you're sitting between you and your garden, your friend's garden, and there's no air between, you have to be very careful because it's very, very easy for things to roll through. So you shouldn't sit and play with things there. You have to go inside, and then you can touch things. But once you're sitting by the actual entrance, even by Rabbanon, Chazal forbade it. A person shouldn't try and settle the barrel into the floor correctly. It might come to flatten the floor. So therefore you have to be careful that you're not allowed to make it like you've got a big barrel and you want to get it firm and settled and straight in the ground. That's forbidden. A person shouldn't take a soft cloth and stick it into the spout. Because in those days, we had it actually earlier, cloths often had moisture inside. So when you press them into the spout, you're going to squeeze out the water from these cloths. And that's also because of soichet. If you've got clay on your clothes, this is quite hard to understand how it will help. You've got clay on the outside of the clothes, on the outside. So you're not allowed to go like this and rub it off. That's forbidden. What you're allowed to is from the inside, rub it inside, like this. And by rubbing it inside, on the inside, that means in the inside of the shirt, you can rub it, go inside the shirt and rub it. Because by doing that, it will crumble the clay on the outside, and the clay on the outside will fall off. Clay on a foot. You can use the back of a knife, but not the knife itself. The reason is because you'll do memachik. When you clean your shoes with a knife, you smoothen out your knife, your shoe at the same time, and that's forbidden. A big dirt on your clothes. If let's say sometimes on Shabbos, you see a child got a stain, you're allowed to scrape it with a nail, because when you scrape with a nail, you're not cleaning the clothes, you're just taking off excess dirt. You're not allowed to rub it. My love, you're not allowed to rub it at all. You're allowed to rub it on the inside, but not on the outside. This is all a problem of libun. What exactly is forbidden? So on the inside, it's okay. And Rashi points out that this is not really melaban. Why is it not melaban? Because you're not using water. When you use water, it's real melaban. Over here, it's only like melaban. So when you do it on the inside, it's not even like melaban. People won't think that you even do. It's not even asking rabbanon. That means when you add water to washing your clothes, it's deraisa. When you do it on the outside, it's rabbanon. When you do it on the inside, even the chachamim permitted it. Cleaning your clothes, whitening the clothes, making it clean. Whenever they used to make in the mishkan, after they used to shear the wool, they would then clean it in order they should be able to use it. Megarin min al chodosh, you'll have to scrape a new shoe, but not an old shoe. The reason is a new shoe is very, very strong. So when you scrape it, nothing comes off. But an old shoe, when you scrape it, things come off, and it's memachik. Tofuk of memala from the base. How could you scrape it? With the back of a knife. Somebody doch become a hold it on here. You're not allowed to scrape, not a new shoe, not an old shoe. To make your shoes are made out of leather. Leather, adding oil to the leather has two functions. One is adding oil can be ma'abed, where you're actually tanning the leather. But even less, even without ma'abed, there's a bit tzachtzea, which is to clean the leather and to make it look nicer. So now what happens if a person wants to make his shoe better? So he's not allowed to add oil to his leg while the leg is inside the shoe, because that way, that's like tanning the leather. Or it's inside the sandal. You can put oil over your foot. And then afterwards, you can put a sandal inside a shoe or a sandal. And he's allowed to add oil to your foot, and at a later stage, put your foot inside the shoe. You're allowed to pour oil over your body. And then roll around on the piece of leather. Because all these ways, it's not proper ma'abed. You're not really doing ma'abed. And it doesn't even look like you're doing ma'abed, because you're putting oil on your own body and only later rolling around in the leather. But when a person has got the leg in the shoe and he adds the oil like that, that is considered proper ibud. But to be ma'abed, to actually tan it is forbidden. Of course it's awesome. Even polishing it would be awesome. Why? Because if a person will allow people to polish it, the leather with oil, then they'll come to even tan it with oil. So even polishing oil with leather with oil is forbidden. Only if you put in enough that all you can do is to clean it. If you're adding enough oil, then now it's actually going to be tanned also. So you're allowed to only put enough oil on your body that the amount of oil that's there will only clean the leather, but it won't actually polish, it won't actually tan the leather. Tanning leather is forbidden, even though you're pouring the oil on your body and then rolling around in the leather. If the amount of oil that you're putting on is enough that the leather itself will now become ma'ubad, will now become tanned, it is forbidden, even though you're doing a b'derech shinoi. A child mustn't go out to the big person's shoe. There are two reasons brought down in the poskim. Why shouldn't a child walk with a big person's shoe? What's wrong? Or come to carry it. Or come to carry it because it'll fall off. Alternatively, people make fun of him, and therefore will be embarrassed and will come to carry it. He's allowed to wear a big coat. Why is he allowed to wear a big coat? Either because it doesn't fall off, because coats you can just wrap around it. And people don't make fun of people wearing a big coat, so therefore he's not likely to. Oh no, so even if people make fun of him, he won't take it off because he won't want to walk around without it. Buy a shoe, people used to walk barefoot easily in the olden days. So therefore, either the shoe will fall off because it's too big, a shoe when it's too big falls off, or he'll be embarrassed and carry it. Buy a cloak, since you can wrap it around yourself, it won't fall off. And even if people make fun of him, he won't carry it because he prefer to walk around and covered respectfully in some clothes rather than to carry it. So you're allowed to walk in a big shoe, you're not allowed to walk in a big shoe, that's a halacha. You're not allowed to go on Shabbos with a shoe which is the wrong size, but you are allowed to go with a coat which is the wrong size. A woman mustn't go out with a torn shoe. She'll be embarrassed and she'll carry it because people will say, hey, boy, you walk around with torn shoes. Men are not as conscious of how they look, and they are allowed to wear a torn shoe. She mustn't do chalitza because the is not of the shoe. If she did, it's okay, but yevet. A person shouldn't go out with a new shoe. Why shouldn't you go out with a new shoe? Because if it doesn't fit to measure, what will happen is the person will be uncomfortable and start carrying it. So you mustn't wear shoes for the very first time on Shabbos. By a woman. If she not worn it even for 1 hour, if a woman wore it even for 1 hour on Friday, since she wore it for an hour, so now she knows whether it fits her, so then it's okay. But to wear a brand new pair of shoes on Shabbos, since it might not be a good fit, it is forbidden for a woman to wear a brand new pair of shoes. She might come to it won't fit, and people will notice that it doesn't fit. No, not bliss. No. Not. That means women are more conscious of how they look, and if it's the wrong size shoe, women will notice and they'll criticize it and she'll end up carrying it. So in the older days, the way you make a shoe is, I don't know, maybe nowadays, you would have a shoe mold, and you'd put leather around the mold, and you'd bang the leather until the leather was attached, and then you had a proper shoe. The last part of doing a shoe, making a shoe, was to pull off the leather off the mold. That was the last process of making a shoe. Till you pulled it off, it wasn't really a proper shoe. There's a machlokes as to whether, before you pull it off the mold, is it considered a keli? Is it considered complete? And there are two nafkiminas if it's considered complete or not. What are the two nafkiminas? Very good. Whether it's mekabel tumah, Shai says, something which is not complete is not mekabel tumah, but more negea to Shabbos, is whether there's a problem with kind of touching it on Shabbos. Because if it's not completely a keli, if it's not a vessel, it's muktzah, right? Something which is not complete is muktzah. So this is a double shaila regarding a shoe which is on top of a mold, whether it's muktzah and whether it's mekabel tumah. So most is like this. Tani choda. One guy says, Shemtim no magabe imus. You're allowed to pull a shoe off its mold. But Tani edoch ain't shemtin. Another guy says, you're not allowed to. Lo kasha. Ho avlezo abondam zachliks of lesson chachamim, whether a shoe is considered complete before it is being pulled off. It's not. Why is it toy? Because it's not finished. You can't call it a shoe yet. It's still on the mold. Say it's a stomach. Why is it tummy? Because it's complete. The fact that you haven't pulled it off, it's not relevant. So therefore, go machlokes whether it's a shoe, and machlokes whether it's mekabel tumah, and it's machlokes whether it's muktzah. It says, according to Rav, that is okay. Why? Because the actual mold is a kedish malachta de'issa, right? What is the mold meant for? To produce shoes. So therefore, when you've got a shoe on the mold, and you need to get to the mold because you need to pull off the shoe, you're allowed to. Because this is a tzerich v'koyim, you need it. You need to get to the mold, so therefore you're allowed to take the mold to pull off the shoe. So that's okay. So therefore, even though you're going to move the mold when you take off the shoe, since you're moving it, the mold of the keli shelach telis is made to make shoes. But it's permitted, because Rav holds keli shelach telis says, mutter l'serich gufim k'imim. Ella ba'adam l'serich gufim, mutter l'serich k'imim also. Ma'ekel meima, what are you going to do? In the end of the day, when you pull the shoe off, the shoe might be complete, but the mold is a keli shelach telis. And getting to the mold is tzerich v'keimer, so it should be awesome. Says the Gemara, where the mold is loose. Since it's loose, by pulling off the shoe, you will not move the mold. You're only moving the shoe. Since you're only moving the shoe, therefore you've got no problem. So therefore the mold is loose, right? Oh, that's a very good point. Shai is asking that if the mold is loose, so then you've got a strong taina. What's the strong taina? If it's already loose, it should be considered to be a completed keli. You're arguing misvah, but you could argue and say no. At the end of the day, till you pull it off, it's not considered complete. So that the Gemara discusses this point.
Can't wear it even if you do take off.
Why? You can't wear it on Shabbos, but the question is, Gabi Tumah V'Tara, is it considered a completed keli or not? The Tanya says, "What's talk about asking but Rafa it's loose." The Tanya if it's loose, you're allowed to pull off the shoe. Says the Gemara. Now, before we ask the kasha on Abaya, because we asked how comes to Abaya, you're allowed to take the shoe off the mold. You're going to move the mold, and there's a case after this. Now the Gemara asks the kasha according to Rava, because the Gemara answer we're talking about where it's loose, and we brought a price that says we're talking about where it's loose. Says the Gemara. Now it's problematic. Tama the Rafa because it's loose. If it's not loose, it's forbidden. According to Abaya, that says that Kiddush Ratanis says also that's why we have to talk about where it's loose, because otherwise not allowed to take it off. Why did we have to say that it's loose, even if it's not loose? According to Robert, you're allowed to move a Kiddush Ratanis. Why did the Brisa tell us that we're talking about a shoe mold that is loose? Even if the shoe mold is very, very tight, you can pull it off because it's the tzirich v'koimoi. Says the Gemara, Ahid Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Lezer hu. Rabbi Lezer before told us that it's not considered complete until you pull it off. Says rather, but when it's loose, it is complete. Therefore, the Tana Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Lezer Mayarofui Mutter. We're going b'shittas Rabbi Lezer, not b'shittas Chachamim. B'shittas Chachamim, that a shoe is complete. Even before you pull it off, it doesn't need to be loose, because the moment that it is finished, it is a completed kelis. It's not muktzah, and the shoe mold is permitted because kelis shlachtin is in a circle from a koimah. According to Rabbi Lezer, that says that until you pull the shoe off, the shoe is not considered complete. So therefore, the shoe is not is tummy, it is a muktzah. But when it's loose, then it's considered complete, and then you're allowed to put it off. So we've got two different mahalchim over here. According to Rabbi, according to the Chachamim, you're always allowed to pull off a shoe, whether it's loose or tight. Because if it's tight, you're allowed to, because and if it's loose, it's mutter even according to Rabbi Lezer, that says it's not complete, but once it's loose, it is complete. According to Abaya, if it's tight, it's forbidden according to everybody, because you won't be able to move the shoe mold. And if it's loose, then it will be permitted according to the Chachamim, because then you're not moving the shoe mold, and therefore it's permitted. We've finished another perk of Shabbos, and we should be zeicher to learn it with Hashem again and again. This will, the next one, and to learn it better and better every time. It says Mazel Tov for finishing a perk. I will go straight on to the next perk. We just had this soon, and we're going to finish with Hashem. Maybe the next perk. We're going to finish the next perk tomorrow. So tomorrow, if anybody remembers, come on, big whiskey. You brought whiskey in?
Yeah.
Who brought it in? Ah, very nice. Anybody who comes quickly to base his soul, there's l'chaim and cake to join in a simcha. It's a tremendous simcha. We must never. And tomorrow there's going to be another siyum with Hashem. No, we're in the middle. We'll do a bit more and we'll stop it. Says the Mishnah. Here we talk about more halachas of muktzah and bosses and things like that. And you've got your child and he's got a stone in his hand. A stone is muktzah. Now we're not worried about the child. The child is not of a chinuch age. So therefore he's carrying muktzah that doesn't disturb us. The problem is the child wants the father to pick him up. When the father picks up the child, he's actually picking up the stone. Says the Mishnah, that's okay. You're allowed to. You're allowed to pick up the child. What? We have this, yes, we have this earlier as well. You're allowed to take a bowl of fruit, even if it's got a stone inside it. That's the famous halacha. You go, bosses the davar musa ba'asa. It doesn't matter, you're allowed to carry it. Therefore, even though there's muktzah inside it, since it's het inside it's mutter. If you've got tomei tumah, which is muktzah, because you can't eat it, you're allowed to carry it if in the same bowl there's toy tumah or chulin. So let's say maybe you've got a kohen, right? So bring you tumah and it gets tomei. Where you get this muktzah? In the same bowl there's chulin, or in the same bowl there is tumah tamei. You can burn it, but you can't burn it on Shabbos. I don't think you're allowed to feed tumah tamei to animals. Yes, when you ask why it's a muktzah, I don't know. Okay, yeah. What? Maybe do okay. The halach is, if you've got truma and it got mixed up with chulin, so if it got mixed up in more than 100, then what happens is you take out a measure which it needs of truma and you give it to the kohen rest as mutter. Again, you had truma and it got mixed up into 100 of chulin. And now you want to separate it, give the truma part to the kohen, and then the rest of it should be permitted. You don't know which part is truma, but that's the halacha that you're allowed to separate a part, say that should be the truma, and the rest comes chulin. The problem is, it's a form of tikkun, because by doing it, you're fixing your produce. And the question is that mutter? And the Yehuda says, yes, it's mutter, there's no problem of tikkun. Says the Gemara, if a person takes a child, carries a child in the street, and he's got a purse hanging on his neck, chayav mishum kiss, you're chayav hoitzah because of the purse. Tinuk meis v'kiss tolu b'tzavoy, potter, you're potter. And he explains himself. Tinuk chayav v'kiss tolu b'tzavoy, chayav mishum kiss, you're chayav because of the purse. V'vei the gebor v'lechayav nam mishum tinuk, you're chayav because of the child. A live person carries himself. If a person carries a person on a bed, then the live person is put on the live person who's Chanus says Atzmoy, and is put on the bed because the bed is bottled to that person. So what says? People would look at the bed as being part and parcel of the live person, it's bottled to the life. But a person doesn't look at the purse as being part of the child. I mean, the child is wearing a jacket, fine, that's bottled to the child. If a child is on a bed, on a buggy, that's bottled to the child. If it's got a purse hanging around his neck, that's not considered bottled to the child. Mace, the kistol with Savoy Potter. Because of the baby is not a chai. Since it's not a chai, so you can't say chai says atzmoy. Since because you don't need the body, you want to take it out. So therefore, it's potter. What about the purse? Why are you not chai because of the purse? And here the Rishonim say, Rashi and others say a very ancient thing, that when the person loses a child, then he gets so upset about it that he doesn't think about the purse. And therefore the purse becomes bottled to the child, just like the tachrichim does. And therefore just like the tachrichim, you don't think to yourself, when am I going to get it back? Also regarding the purse. So when he's alive, you say, look, I've got a child, I've got a purse. But when he's niftar, chas v'shalom aleichem aleinu, it's nefesh v'vatum. No, I don't think they'll bury with a child. But what happens is, because of the bitterness, he forgets about it. He's not machshav it. Says the Gemara, Tana, no, you're allowed to.
The main thing is that it's high for the child already.
No, but there is potter. No, it's not true. He's potter completely. On the dead child, it's potter gufa. On the person, it's potter because it's potter to the child. Says the Gemara, Tana, no, you're allowed to carry a child with a stone in his hand. Towards a child where he's got desire for his father. Rashi points out, and Shavuot talks about this, we're not talking about a child that is so yearning for his father that it's a matter of danger. No danger for the child. It's simply that the child feels unhappy and a bit unwell without the father carrying. So therefore, there were matter over here, muktzah, by picking up the child, which is holding the stone, only because of a small, minor yearning that the child has for the father. Says the Gemara, if so, why only a stone? Top of Kufman based on Aleph, why only a stone? Even a coin as well. But if a coin, you're not allowed to. The Gemara says, if the child drops it, when the father picks up his child, and the child's holding a stone, the child is not worried about it because the child's not by chinuch, so it makes no difference. The father, when he picks him up, if he sees the child dropping the stone, doesn't think about it. But if the father sees the child carrying a money, and the child drops the money, since we've allowed the father to pick up the child, he'll get so absorbed in it, he'll think to himself, I'm also allowed to carry the money and end up carrying the money. So therefore, we forbid the father from carrying the child who's carrying the money. So if a person sees his child carrying a precious thing on Shabbos, and the child is yearning for the father, he can't just pick him up down. You have to ask the child to drop it, and only then pick up the child. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kavose de Rava. We've learned like Rava that when a person carries a child who's carrying something, which was the case when the child's got a purse around the neck, that he says you're chayav. We've learned a price like Rava. A person carries his clothes while they're folded on his shoulders, or he's carrying his rings or his shoes in the palms of his hand, chayav. Because that's not wearing it, that's carrying your clothes on your shoulders. If you're wearing your shoes or your rings or your clothes, potter. The person carries another human being who's got clothes. If you carry a person who's wearing clothes and rings and shoes, you're potter. Why? A human being is chanus atzmoy, and the clothes that he's got are bottled to the person. Now, if you carry a human being who's carrying something else, one is chayav, and that's the halacha. If a person carrying another person, and that person is carrying something else, one is chayav al soitzor. You don't say, I'm not carrying, I'm just carrying my child, the child's carrying. No, one is chayav because of itzor. And this is where we will stop today. We start officially 5 to, okay, type of thing. It's a new topic now. Any questions? First, there's a big crowd today on Zoom. I'm not sure, everybody seems to be on Zoom today. Look, it's very nice to see you all on Zoom. It's very nice to see everybody. But if you would come here, you'd get a lechaim. I'm not sure. You can have a lechaim at home as well if you've got at home. Mazel, we're finishing the perk. And any questions? And it's a very, very lot of halachas. It's fascinating. I might finish the perk tomorrow. Hopefully we'll finish the perk tomorrow. Right ahead.
Trying to finish before the summer,
No, I was hoping to finish in 9 days, but that's gone long out of the window. There'll be no shiur on Tisha B'Av, and not on the Friday after Tisha B'Av, and on the Erev Tisha B'Av, there'll be a very short shiur in the morning, which will be uploaded. Yeah. Tisha B'Av is a Thursday. Tisha B'Av is a Thursday. Yes, you can't have a shiur Wednesday night because of you're not allowed to learn on Erev Tisha B'Av. Right. Okay, Hatzlacha with everything. Okay, we're in touch. Hatzlacha with everything. Have a good night. Hope everybody's okay. Mazel tov. Okay.